Right. Well, welcome to our Wednesday 2 o'clock p.m. UK time live session with 12 Ronnies and our mentors. Today, I'd like to welcome a new guest for us, Manu. Manu, would it be possible just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you? My understanding is that you're involved in product development and at Amazon and places like that.
Correct. Hi, everybody. My name is Manu. Just for background, I studied engineering, and then I have double masters from the US. I have held product roles at companies like BMW, Apple, and Amazon. In my current role, I lead a global and cross-functional team where I'm in charge of developing technical products for Amazon internal teams and the manufacturers that we work with. I also have a bunch of background in mentoring startups here in the US.
Brilliant, wonderful. Well, that's perfect for what we need on these live streams and the mentoring that we do at 12 Ronnies. And just before we encourage some questions, I'd like to let everybody know that if you're looking for a mentor, looking for some help, or you have questions outside these live streams, you can always go to our website, 12ronnies.com, 12ronnies.com, and you'll see join the community. We have a free community to join where we have lots of mentors on there. We also have sub communities. So if you're a tech founder, there's a community for tech founders, or a female founder or a creative founder. You can join these free communities. We have events, we have plenty of content. So feel free to explore. But for now, on this half an hour call, if you could post any comments, and when I say comments, in the comments, any questions you have to do with launching a business, so the pre-launch stage, and we'll do our best to answer them or get back to you. But while you're posting some comments, Manu, I just wanted to ask you a question myself because of your involvement with product development. How do people, founders, continuously improve and innovate their products or services? I mean, they've thought of an idea, but how do they progress, innovate, improve? What would be your sort of 30-second advice on that side of things?
For me, it starts with getting clarity on what problems you're solving and who you're solving it for. Obsessing about your customers, obsessing about your problems is really the first starting point. Then you work backwards from that and figure out where you are, where you want to go. I think that really sets the foundation in my mind. And then you can layer on other pieces in terms of how do you actually build it, how do you price it right, how do you get initial feedback. But I think paramount is having the clarity on the vision, having the clarity on what problems you're solving and who you're solving it for and why, truly sets the stage for what you want to do next. So that'll be my, initial reaction.
No, that's really helpful, because both myself and Bill, we're great advocates of idea validation, of actually spending your time validating the idea, not building products. So we like prototypes that aren't really the product. There may be an example of how it would work, or a video clip, or things like that. So we're not great. We're not involved so much in the building of products, but in the trying to validate the idea prior to a product. And there's various stages, I guess, going from that validation through to a finished product, and whether have different terminology like prototyping and MVP, and then a fully finished product.
Absolutely. And I think there are so many newer technologies depending on the field that you're talking about. There's like 3D printing, for example. There is a whole bunch of like LLMs and AI that you could use to get the initial prototypes out. And initial prototypes are also very different from actually building the product. If you want, some validation or initial customer feedback, these prototypes truly minimize the cost that you will incur upfront, cost, time, and effort before you invest more time and effort. So it's really critical for you to leverage the latest and greatest. go small, get it validated, get the initial feedback, and then go forward from there. You're absolutely right there, Simon.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And Bill, is there anything in terms of product development that you want to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I guess with your question being how do you improve over time, looking at the longer term, product improvement really means just staying relevant in the marketplace with your customers. So the challenge becomes how do we stay with our customer constantly, understand how the world around them is changing and how the problem that we originally solved is changing, so that our product doesn't become irrelevant or get out competed by somebody else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And for the audience, if you have any questions on product development or any questions to do with starting a business, please do ask them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer. But I'm just going to follow on this theme a little bit. Oh, we've got some questions here. Let me just put one from Chris. What elements need to be in place in order to launch an MVP? So my understanding of that is obviously what do you need prior to launching an MVP, and when would you launch it? Manu,
Yeah,
your thoughts there?
Yeah, some reactions here. One, it is extremely critical for you to think through the customer experience. You don't want the product to be so subpar that customers get turned away, for example. Number one. And number two, you also want enough of a product where you can gather the initial feedback and build upon that, depending on the feedback that you receive. So you want to ensure that whatever you're putting out there, the reasons are kind of clear, and you get clarity on how you will take the initial feedback and then improve upon it, right? Third is obviously, this is what we say in Amazon. We've moved away from the concept of minimum viable product to minimum lovable product, because oftentimes what happens is the impressions that the customers form, depending on what product you're talking about, those are very hard. Trust is very hard to earn and easy to lose. So you just have to be very mindful of what that initial impression you're making, in customers' mind, through this. So as long as those 2-3 things are taken care of, I feel, you should be set. And there's a whole slew of other things in terms of gathering the right metrics, having the right customer, support in place, how do you scale it and things like that. So those are all secondary in my mind, but I feel the paramount, here is those initial 2 or 3 things that are important, because that's really the first stage. And then you figure out where you kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's really key, and it's nice to have a structure and understand the structure to go through there. And something else that also I've been seeing increasingly about product development is people have been asking at the early stage, how can I use AI? How can I use this whole generative AI chat GPT thing has grabbed everybody's imagination. And I work a lot with entrepreneurs in trying to find customer profiles and trying to look at these customer segments and what they're interested in. So not so much the product side of things. And something that one of my colleagues has been doing a lot of work in the areas is training these AIs, these generative AIs, in being a particular customer profile. So they train them to be a certain person, a certain persona, and then the entrepreneurs in their class, in their group, are then interrogating this customer persona to try and understand the needs of these personas that they can fulfill. And I'm just wondering whether you chaps have used AI or seen some interesting examples of AI, but in product development or other examples in this ecosystem.
For sure, definitely. I don't know, Bill, do you want to take a crack at this? I've already gone once.
Oh, Bill, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, just a quick recommendation then, Manu. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Is David Bland, if you look him up on LinkedIn, he's got some great AI chat GPT bots right now for idea validation and experimentation. So take a look at those resources. They're really great places to start.
No, that's really useful. Maybe we can put those also in the comments, Bill, or list them in there. They're good resources. And just before Manu, you come on to further in that, I can see that Egils has said all you need is passion. AI will do most of the rest. It feels like it's going that way.
Absolutely. I think passion is definitely key. I mean, especially if you're a founder, like you set the tone for your team, you set the tone for your product. Your teams, your investors will feed off of your energy. So it is very important for you to have the passion and have that right mindset as you go about building the product or launching your business. So it's extremely critical. I like that call out here from Nichols.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And in terms of the previous part about AI and anything that you've seen,
Yeah. I mean, I think more recently, what we are trying to do, at least in my teams, is we are trying to go back to the drawing board and figure out, is the way we are working on certain things. For example, there is a certain approach we take, especially for engineering, software engineering type of products, where we write PRDs, we talk to the customers, we do backend coding. There is a front end and there is a UX. Across all those tasks, we are really trying to question how can we actually do it better with AI? How can we actually go faster? So all the traditional norms and conventions that you have, we are questioning all of those. And with like so many newer technologies like ChatGPT is like continually improving. There is Claude, from Anthropic and things like that. So the specific things that we were able to leverage AI, are simple actions. For example, if teams are having to extract this data from this website and process that data, parse that, do something else, can we actually do leverage AI? Super simple to kind of do that. Some other things like, hey, if customers are actually asking simple questions, about your product, can we feed those SOPs and documentations, and can we leverage, AIs to get those questions answered? So there are a bunch of use cases that we are, discovering. What started off as hey, how can we leverage this, latest and greatest to where we can add value? That list is like at least 50 or 70 use cases long. So continually just thinking about where we can leverage these newer technology, where we can go faster, where we can add value. I think that's really the starting point. I'm pretty sure if we spend enough time, we'll discover a whole bunch of use cases where we could leverage these newer technologies.
Yeah, it feels like we're in a really exciting time of transition at the moment with entrepreneurship. It's, I'm old enough to remember the days when, well, let's say before the internet, when we didn't have these online businesses or this online help or this online support, and or methodologies really to do idea validation. We might have thought of these things in a different way, but I'm getting the feeling now that a lot of expertise is going into systems that will automate so much of the processes we're doing, and it should be easier to launch a business. I actually think it should be easier than it currently is to launch a business that has more chance of success. It's horrific, the data still about business failure, and how many businesses are still around 3 to 5 years later, and it should be a rosier environment. And I don't know whether you chaps have any thoughts or comments on where we're going with this, and any advice for the founders here about pursuing their dreams and how long to give it, what to, this all you need is passion, AI will do most of the rest comment from Egils is partly tongue-in-cheek, I assume, but just elaborating on this sort of subject of being an entrepreneur, being passionate, and in an environment where there's a lot of failure and where it's going. Any thoughts, chaps? It's a general throw out there.
Bill?
Yeah, an AI is never going to be able to stop you from beating the proverbial dead horse when the customer's saying no and you're still throwing good money after bad, or bad money after good. So the AI can give you advice, but it's whether or not you take it or not. And there's still a lot of people who have, when they have their idea, they're just so attached to it that it's their baby, that they can't step away even when the customer is repeatedly saying no after numerous experiments. I think that may never change.
Yeah.
But if you're able to step away from that, I think AI can really help you.
Great.
Absolutely. I think, Simon, you also hit on an interesting point. I think the internet definitely has democratized the information. There's so much content out there. There's so many trainings out there, free trainings. Like YouTube is such a great resource for you to get up to speed on AI. So I feel the internet has truly reduced the upfront cost and barriers for a founder to equip himself or herself on the right tools and techniques when it comes to technologies like this. And then you need like basic things like curiosity. How do you obsess about your customer? How do you keep an open mind? To Bill's point, how do you learn from the feedback? How do you stay flexible in the face of new insights and information to minimize the losses or to minimize the negative outcomes, so to speak. So I really like that call out from both of you there.
Yeah, and I'd also add to that, it's the entrepreneurial mindset, isn't it? A lot of the time, it's this curiosity you mentioned. To me, that's one of the major factors of an entrepreneurial mindset. I know it's also a mindset of many other things, but if you're not curious about your customer needs, if you're not curious about solving problems there, if you're just rigid, this is what we're doing, then you've got to get really lucky. So it's. I very much take curiosity is one of the key mindset elements of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it becomes it's an outcomes mindset instead of an outputs mindset. The outcome is solving the customer problem, and that's static. Whereas the output mindset is this product is what we're going to build, whether or not the customer really wants it or not.
Yeah, and I guess there's another question from Egil's. You always need a strong community, and that's also a mindset thing in a way. In that some people are solo entrepreneurs, they always say, as well as entrepreneur teams. We all need communities to, we're social creatures, most of us, and we might develop in a dark room, but we want to get out of it sometimes. And we certainly need to get out of it if we're developing for customers. And I like what Egil says there about a strong community and a place to be loved and appreciated.
And those people in the community, those other entrepreneurs will question what you're doing. They don't care about your idea. They'll say, "Why are you doing that?" Or "What could you do to learn more?" And that's what you need. You need that external pressure to do the right thing.
I'd also add that with communities, okay, 12 Ronnies have a community. We have an online community, but there are so many different communities out there that you can go to get help, whether they're meetups, whether they're location specific, you can actually go to. Most towns and certainly all cities have entrepreneurial meetups. There's always somewhere, there are businesses everywhere. And people want to talk, and business people are always coming up with new ideas or new products. And so there's physical meetups almost everywhere if you search online for them. But there's so many virtual meetup communities. You could spend all your time visiting these and joining them.
That's exactly right. I think I was more recently, when I was exchanging the initial emails with you, Simon, I was looking for opportunities to get involved in the community more. up until then, I hadn't really spent enough time, on the internet. And then once I started, once I started on this journey, I just quickly found there are hundreds of events happening like in my city, and it was almost impossible to keep up with everything. So the problem statement then become, what do you kind of prioritize? What do you kind of care after? So to your point, there's just so many of them, and the topics are wide ranging. It can be about a specific technology. It can be about networking. It can be about somebody transitioning from this space to that space. There's coffee chats. There is keynote speakers. There is all sorts of help, around financing, fundraising, things like that. So like meetups, Seattle meetups is, I'm based here in Seattle. There's like hundreds of events, like pretty much happening like almost on a weekly basis. So it's just amazing how these communities are kind of coming together. Opportunities for you to exchange ideas, learn from each other, and then use that as you go about your journey.
Yeah, and you're also, Manu, I understand you're coming to London in July.
Yes.
And you mentioned what sort of meetups and things can we be there, and I pointed out to you we're slightly different, us Europeans, us British, in that July isn't the hardest working month. There's a lot of holidays and vacations, and there's far less going on apart from people wanting to go to the beach or get some warm weather, particularly if you're based in England and you really want some warm weather. But yeah, there's the other thing I would say is with communities and meetups and groups is, don't always go to the obvious ones. And an example here is I've been looking at launching a marketplace for innovative new products, and I was looking at, well, what conferences are there around for marketplaces and e-commerce and all of that. But one of the segments looking at focusing on is the games industry, tabletop games. And actually, it would make more sense than me to go to a marketplace conference where everybody's doing those things. It would make more sense to me to go where the customers would be and the people that would be buying these products, like game conferences, tabletop game conferences, than what I would associate would be my peer group. So it's not always obvious. I don't know what your thoughts are, Bill.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, there's really two different groups of things that you might go to. One that might edify you as an entrepreneur, and the other that might represent those consumers you're trying to reach. You're really being able to understand those people going to a conference, going to the proverbial Comic-Con. Those are your early adopters. Those are the people that are most rapidly involved in the space, and understanding them is what you have to understand first anyway. So it's a great investment of your time.
Yeah, and Christopher's also asked, what do you think is the most important feature of a community? And he's also added to that. And with communities, what can you offer, and what do you need? I mean, so we're really going into what do you think the most important feature of a community is, guys? And any thoughts on that?
I think from my standpoint, a couple ones that come to my mind are, I think it's the giving, and I think people should be willing to give. They should, feel the need to help each other out. Having that mindset, that giving nature. For example. So that's definitely one. And number two is you want to ensure that the community that you're part of, or what you're actually looking for, is actually, in the startup world, for example, right? Just touching on the product and stuff that we talked about, you want a community that is thinking about the future, that is pushing the boundaries, not just focus on the status quo where things are, but what can the future be? So there is a lot of communities that do that thinking, even in the gaming industry that Bill kind of call that, right? There's so many newer business models. There's so many newer things came about, from a gaming perspective. Earlier, it used to be like only like people would play games. Now it's more about you watching other people play games. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just that furthering the thinking about the future. That's an important characteristic in my mind.
Yeah, and you touched also on something there, Manu, which is it's important to first of all show what you can give a community, not just join and say, "This is what I want." Yeah, me. Even if it's just saying, "Look, I'm not sure what I can give, but this is me, and this is what I'm doing, and I'd love to help somebody, and maybe you can use me to give some feedback." On your product, this is my customer segment, or something like that. I think it's a really good way of people warming to you. Sorry, Bill, I can see that you're.
I'm thinking of a bad example. Sometimes it's good to talk about what isn't a good example. I was working on a team, and we were trying to locate entrepreneurial people for a product that we knew would help them. And so I went to this space that was sponsored by a local corporation where people in the community could come in and get inspired for their dreams and all this sort of stuff. And I went in there and learned about the people that were patronizing the space. And the funny thing is, they weren't really entrepreneurs. They were more look-entrepreneurs. They looked around. They wanted to do something else, but it was really just too scary to do anything. And that all by itself wouldn't have been a problem. But when we tested them to see if we could get them unstuck, they couldn't, because they were unwilling to do anything different. They just wanted to feel better by coming to this place. And I'm going to come here once a week for an hour. I'm going to feel better. Then I'll just go home and go back to my life. So it's going in that place, experiencing it, understanding if what you need is there, and then walking away if it doesn't. Don't try to make it into something it wasn't. In fact, my teammates started teasing me because I kept on going back there to see if anything had changed, and nothing ever did.
Yes, yeah. Don't force change. Yeah, don't force it. No, absolutely. Actually, that's very good, Bill. Christopher's also asked our feelings on our private members clubs, worthwhile networks, because there's actually I can think of a few sort of private clubs. From my point of view, actually, I'll answer that, Christopher. I think private members clubs for business networking. So because I'm going to distinguish now. We're often founders looking to launch a business to customers. Is the ecosystem 12 Ronnies working? But if you have an already launched business, and you're looking now to network with people that can help that business, so it might be lawyers and accountants and people like that, then I think there's the private members clubs you join are probably the clubs sort of that like-minded people would join, or are probably at your sort of stage in life, those sorts of things. So maybe for business networking, good idea, but for pre-launch founders, I'm not so sure.
The only one that I can think of is like a maker space, where you may have to pay a monthly subscription to have access to the space. This is kind of getting around to where we started half an hour ago, and Manu was talking about all the great technologies. These will all be available in that space for you to use for a monthly fee. But the cool thing is while you're there, you're talking to other people who are trying to do the same thing as you, and you get some of those synergistic effects. So that'd be the one place where it probably would be worth it to an early stage entrepreneur.
Thanks, Bill. Guys, we're coming to the end of our time now, the end of our half an hour. Thank you, Bill and Manu, for joining us. Just before we go, Manu, question for you directly. Let me just take the comment off here. Just wanted to, in terms of launching a business, you've been involved as a mentor, and you've probably seen lots of startups. Is there? I mean, there's lots of advice that can be given, but is there a standout advice for today? I know there's different standout advice, but what would come to your mind for today as something, if people are tuning in to this and just before they go, you would say, here's a bit of advice.
Philosophical comments, okay, here.
Yeah.
For me, it would come down to net happiness. I think get very clear in terms of why you're doing what you're doing. If it is not adding to your net happiness, if it is like getting you all like riled up, if it is making you like anxious, if you're taking on too many risks, if you don't know yourself too well, then it's not going to be worth it. I think it goes back to one of the call outs here from Egil's. Like if you're truly passionate about something, it won't feel like work to you. If it's like draining you, dragging you down, then all of these like networking, this membership, this fundraising is going to like weigh you down, and you're going to age a lot faster, and you are not going to be fun around other people, around your family or kids or friends. So make sure you're really thinking through the reasons, and make sure you're optimizing for net happiness would be my one advice.
Thank you, Manu. That's excellent advice. And the sorts of things we've discussed here and many more, you can ask us these questions in our community, in the 12 Ronnies community. If you go to 12ronnies.com and the community aspect here, and there's other mentors, connect with myself, Bill, Manu, but other people that also have different views on different parts of entrepreneurships. And feel free to join us next week, same time. That's 2:00 UK time on a Wednesday, and we'll attempt to ask you questions. So bye for now.